Well, as we have already mentioned, March is Women's History Month. But did you know of its origins in 1978 as a local celebration in Santa Rosa, California? Well, it didn't take long for it to become a movement that spread across the country. Within only 2 years, in 1980, the National Women's History Project successfully lobbied for national recognition, and President Jimmy Carter established Women's History Week. That was the first step. Eventually, in 1987, Congress designated March as Women's History Month. President Carter's message read in part, "From the first settlers who came to our shores, from the first American Indian families who befriended them, men and women have worked together to build this nation. Too often the women were unsung and their contributions went unnoticed. But the achievements, leadership, courage, strength, and love of women who built America was as vital as that of men whose names we know so well." So let us delve back into women's history. How about if we start in a place that today we call Egypt? In the beginning was none, and she was made manifest in the dark, boundless waters that preceded creation. Neith emerged from none in the form of a cow, the goddess Mehet Weret. Neith then illuminated her own eyes, allowing her to see in the primordial darkness, and lo, light entered the universe. Then Neith caused the mound of creation to rise from the waters of the Nun. This she did through the power of her speech. Neith continued to conceive things in her heart and bring them into being by speaking their names, creating sacred spaces and a retinue of 30 deities. An egg emerged from Neith's body and hatched to reveal the sun god Ra. At Ra's birth, Neith charged him with the continued creation of the cosmos. The two embraced, Ra weeping with joy, and his tears became humanity, while his spittle became other gods. Finally, Neith invited Ra to come north with her to her primary residence, and again took the form of a cow. Neith swam up the Nile, carrying the sun god Ra between her horns. Today, in Egyptian Neith festivals, celebrants carry torches just as Neith carried the sun god. That's just one story, but there are many, many goddess creation myths. For example, the Greeks believed Gaia was the great mother of all creation, and that the heavenly gods were all descended from her. Among the multiple African goddesses of creation are Mawu, who was the West Africans believed created earth, humanity, and everything on it, and Oshun, who is the Yoruba goddess of creation, love, and fresh water. Then there is Nana Buluke, the supreme female creator and goddess of wisdom, who created the first humans and gave birth to the moon goddess and the sun god. Paula Gunn Allen, a Native American, writes about such goddesses in her essay, Grandmother of the Sun, saying, "There is a spirit that pervades everything and is capable of powerful song and radiant movement, and that moves in and out of the mind. Old Spider Woman is one name for this quintessential spirit, and Serpent Woman is another. Corn Woman is one aspect of her, and Earth Woman another. And what together they have made is called creation. There is evidence of goddess worship that was prevalent as far back as 30,000 BCE. Science tells us that the earth was formed around 4.5 billion years ago, and then life began after about another billion or so. In 1974, the great-great-great-grandmother of humanity, Lucy, was discovered in Hadar, Ethiopia. She lived about 3 million years ago and is the earliest known ancestor of our genus Homo. Although in recent years additional discoveries have rivaled her status, as of now, Lucy continues to reign as the matriarch of the human family. An African woman, one could say that Lucy gave birth to us all, you and me, and even our current president. When I first arrived at this church in 1975, at the tender age of 20, I had just dropped out of Wheaton College in Illinois, which is a fundamentalist school in the Chicago suburbs. I didn't know I needed to be liberated, though I did question the doctrine that women were not permitted to speak in the church and that we were to always be submissive. At the Anaheim church, I met Rosalie Abrams, aforementioned by Art this morning, who in 1971 had founded the Orange County Feminist Repertory Theater. They put on a production in the church and brought prominent women leaders of Orange County in. I remember her show, Myth America, How Far Have We Really Come? It included skits and music showing women a second-class status and highlighting the courageous women who had fought for equality. And in that time, I increasingly became educated about women's history and increasingly engaged with it. Anthropologists, mostly men, have typically portrayed women in prehistoric societies as being devoted to child-rearing, gathering, and other mundane tasks. But a more recent research suggests that women played other, more active roles, including hunting. In fact, Maria Gimbutas has put forth a theory that a peaceful, sophisticated, matrilineal, and egalitarian societies existed in old Europe. She based this theory on discoveries of the graves of women with lavish tombs that included numerous feminine-oriented artifacts, as well as a wealth of female figurines, especially the mother goddess figures, at sites like Çatalhöyük in the south-central Turkey. These successful societies were later overpowered by patriarchal Proto-Indo-Europeans who migrated from the Eurasian steppes. Later, in Minoan Crete, a magnificent Bronze Age civilization existed, and its artwork depicts women playing prominent roles, performing religious rites, weaving, dancing, even holding bulls by the horns for ceremonial bull leaping. Preserved images show women conducting commerce with another civilization of strong women, the Egyptians. And the Egyptians were also connected with the Hittites, whose empire was ruled by the priestess queen Puduhepa, beside her husband in the mid-13th century BCE. She wrote boldly to Pharaoh Ramses for assistance at a time of famine, signing her letter with her own seal. Ramses was happy to help and to oblige, and his wife, Queen Nefertiti, wrote Puduhepa and sent her gifts as well. And then there's Enheduanna, the Sumerian poet, and daughter of the powerful king Sargon of Akkad. She has been called the earliest named author in the world. Her poetry was celebrated and preserved under her own name, offering evidence of Mesopotamians' openness to female displays of power. And speaking of poetry, the love poet Sappho from Lesbos was deeply involved in the political machinations of her day, earning exile for her efforts at one point. Even without formal political roles, it seems that women could wield sufficient influence to be exiled for it. We can read about the Pythia priestesses at Apollo Delphi, whose decisions shaped Greek history in dramatic ways, and Artemisia, the cunning Greek queen, who joined the side of the Persian king Xerxes during the Second Persian invasion of Greece. Looking back at this time, dominated by male warrior lords and generals, and seeing women changing history and even leading military forces can make us question our assumptions about the ancient world. Then there are the sisters Trung Trak and Trung Ni. They were daughters of a general who ran the district of Gyachi shortly after the turn of what we call the Common Era in what is today northern Vietnam. The sisters were tutored in literature and studied martial arts alongside their father. Southeast Asia society at that time was quite progressive when it came to women's rights, especially regarding education and property ownership. Sister Trung Trak grew up to marry Tai Sak, a general from a neighboring district. When the ruling Chinese increased taxes and demanded bribes from local Vietnamese officials, General Sak began to organize his fellow aristocrats to rebel. Trung Trak may have been an integral force in assisting her husband, yet she was spared when the Chinese captured and executed him without trial. Even after that, in 40 of the Common Era, Trung Trak, alongside her sister, Trung Ni, began mobilizing local people to continue the fight against the Chinese rule. The army they formed numbered about 80,000 soldiers, both peasants and aristocrats, led by 36 women generals, reportedly including the Trung sisters' elderly mother, and armed with swords, bows and arrows, axes and spears, the Trung sisters successfully forced the Chinese leader to the outer region. Trung Trak was declared queen of the newly created independent country that she ran alongside her sister. Then in 41 of the Common Era, the Chinese emperor became determined to recapture Vietnam for his empire. The sisters were overrun by the Chinese forces and were defeated in 43 AD near the site of present-day Hanoi. The tale of the Trung sisters captured the Vietnamese imagination throughout the region's period of French colonialism and during the Vietnam War, because it marked a time when Southeast Asia was ruled by its own people, free from colonial interference. Today, the Trung sisters are celebrated each year in Vietnam on the anniversary of their deaths in honor of their courage and sacrifice. Maybe some of you have heard of Wangari Maathai of Kenya. She was the first African female to win a Nobel Peace Prize and the first woman in East Africa to earn a doctorate in veterinary anatomy. In 1977, she founded the Greenbelt Movement, an environmental organization focused on planting trees across Kenya and alleviating poverty and women's rights. The more you degrade the environment, she said, the more you dig deeper into poverty. She mobilized Kenyans, particularly women, to plant more than 30 million trees and inspired the United Nations to launch a campaign that has led to the planting of 11 billion trees worldwide. Yeah. More than 900 million Kenyan women benefited from her tree planting campaign by selling seedlings for reforestation. In 2016, Indigenous women and LGBTQ+ people led protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline, a pipeline that jeopardized water supplies for the Oglala, Lakota, Standing Rock, and Cheyenne River Sioux tribes that would disturb nearby native sites. For many advocates, it was the first time they had watched a movement that was led largely by women and queer folk and was focused on a unifying cause that was not based in gender. One protester was grateful for the safe space created for Native trans youth to gather. Another commentator said, I think what was very unique about the Standing Rock protests was how they were led by women. I think that's why they're so important. They're there to protect their family and their children. So their leadership and their motivation for making those choices is an act of love. Yonas Da, Lone Wolf, a member of the Oglala Lakota, said, we are the ones that give life and have a connection to this earth, to the heartbeat of Mother Earth. We feel that she is screaming and yelling. So I think that is the reason why so many women went to the front. I wonder if any of you have ever thought about calling on the power of the ancient goddess to empower and guide you. Or have you ever felt a need to ask a sister to join you in the struggle beside you? Do you have female role models in your life? Not only those from public life, but perhaps from your family, from among your friends and acquaintances? Think about those women. I would invite you to call out their names and honor them this morning. May her name be blessed. Are there others that we need to honor this morning? Gary. May her name be blessed. Awesome. May her name be blessed and remembered. Amen. Awesome. Are there any people on Zoom that we need to? Okay, Alexandra. Wonderful, wonderful. May their names be blessed. Thank you, Jerry. Anyone on Zoom, Gary? No, okay. Yes, Barbara. All right, all right. May they all be remembered and held in our hearts. Oh, listening to you name these people, I feel that there is truly no end to the vital contributions that women have made throughout history. And yet here we are in 2025, faced with eroding women's rights, including the right to abortion for as many as 36% of the women of reproductive age in this country. That's bad enough, but we also have Project 2025 policies hanging over our heads. They want to revive a 19th century law, the Comstock Act, to prevent abortion medications and materials from being sent through the U.S. Postal Service. And they want to reverse the FDA's approval of mifepristone. Remember when I mentioned those proto-Europeans, invaders who overthrew the peaceful egalitarian societies in Europe? It feels to me like those same forces are once again assembled, trying to overpower any effort toward recreating an egalitarian society for today. And yet today, we are still able to honor and celebrate our foremothers on whose shoulders we stand. Those women who had few, if any, rights. They fought anyway, and they won. As I write this, I often think of the words of Clarissa Pinkola Estes. This is an excerpt from her letter to a young activist in troubled times. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. The light of the soul throws sparks, can send up flares, build signal fires, causes proper matters to catch fire, to display the lantern of the soul, to be fierce, and to show mercy toward others. Both are acts of immense bravery and great necessity. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. This is one of the strongest things that you can do. We might feel dismayed. We may feel the world we struggled for is crumbling or is being intentionally destroyed before our eyes. It is up to us to keep the vision alive, to be worthy inheritors of the achievements of the great women of history, and worthy ancestors for the women and men who come after us. So if you are dismayed, take heart. And if you are furious, stay furious. Phenomenal women, carry on. That's us.